as per today's agenda, we will be first covering SRE as a role. We'll be breaking down SRE and DevOps and different buzzwords around the system. We'll then actually talk about Rohan's career journey. He has worked across different companies, MNCs, and startups, and we'll be covering those. And then finally, we'll be breaking down the complete interview preparation uh, roadmap for how to break into SRE roles, both for just aspiring SREs and also for experienced professionals switching from one startups or MNCs and everything. Hello everyone, welcome to yet another video of our Mentor Talk series where we invite mentors and interviewers from top companies and break down their career journeys and learn about interview preparation strategies and roadmap. So today I have with me a very special guest, a dear friend of mine, Rohan Jaiswal, also my co-founder and CTO at Preplaced. So yeah, welcome Rohan.
Thanks, Sahil. Thanks for having me here.
So, Rohan, just to start with, the first question that many of aspiring engineers would have is that there's so much buzzword around SRE, DevOps, AWS, cloud computing. So, what exactly is all this buzz about, and what does SRE DevOps engineers actually do?
Sure. So, this is one of my favorite questions. Like everyone I've literally known who wants to get into SRE, like doesn't first of all understand what SRE is, what the differences between SRE and DevOps are. So it's nice that you brought it up. So to cover this, like fundamentally, what we need to understand is what DevOps does, or what is dev and what is ops in DevOps, right? So I have a good image with me, like which can entirely explain what development and operations is like. Just let me share my screen. I'll walk you through it. So let if my so the image which I wanted to talk about is this one. Okay, it might be pixelated a little bit, but you'll get the context. So,
Hmm.
what you see in this image is like there are two loops, right? There is a dev loop and there is a ops loop, and they
Hmm.
are interconnected. So
Hmm.
what this means is for the people who are in development, right, or who are developers who call themselves software developers, they are on the left side of the loop, right? People
Hmm.
who are in operations, okay, are mostly lying on the right side of the loop. So
Hmm.
a typical software developer would code, plan, test, and build. Okay, this would be their core responsibilities. Okay, and a typical ops guy would handle the deploy, operate, and monitor for the software which the dev guy has built, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So the intersection here, which you see, is the release pipeline, right? Which is going from dev to ops. Okay, that is the central part which governs DevOps as an engineer. Okay, so if I talk about DevOps engineer, it has started with the field of managing releases first, right? Like if dev is doing something, how do you get it to ops, or how do you get it released? Okay,
Hmm.
so that's the first part which a DevOps engineer does. Okay,
Okay.
the thing which differentiates like a SRE and a DevOps, okay, is that uh, a SRE is a dev person who is helping ops. Okay,
Okay.
so this is a software engineer who actually wants to improve the ops cycle. So what a software engineer would do to improve ops would be to write a lot of automation code, right? In order to fasten this, like speeden up this process of release, deploy, operate, and monitor, or like create more and more automations and standardizations, which can speed up the work of the ops team. Okay,
Hmm.
that's what a SRE engineer would do. Okay, and similarly, a DevOps is the other way around. Like it's a ops guy who's helping the development team. Okay, so that is how the roles have come up. So a typical ops guy would be a systems engineer. Okay, like who knows how to manage servers. Okay, and now when he's managing the release for a development group, that is when he's called as a DevOps. And similarly, like a developer who's helping the ops team would be known as a SRE. So
Hmm.
that's the fundamental difference of like what I'd call a DevOps and an SRE. And
Hmm.
this was a question which like I couldn't understand when I was trying to like pursue SRE as a career. Okay, so I also couldn't make up my mind what is the exact path. Like, is it a DevOps or an SRE?
Hmm.
So like it's a good question that you brought it up.
Hmm.
So just to give a little more clarity on this, right? Like what, how exactly DevOps differentiates from SRE. Okay,
Hmm.
so look, what we can do typically is like just go through what what kind of jobs do they do,
Hmm.
right? Like
Hmm.
what is the difference between a DevOps engineer and an SRE? Okay,
Hmm.
so if you see, like as I mentioned, right, the DevOps work here is to handle the development pipeline. Okay, so development would create a software and then to deploy it in the servers. That would be a DevOps job. And SRE's job would be that once the software is deployed, okay, you have to make sure that it's reliable. It doesn't go down. So site reliability engineering. So that is where it means that it should always be reliable. So that is why you check resiliency, scaling, uptime,
Hmm.
robustness of the software that is deployed. Similarly, like if I go through this one by one, but what the gist of it is that most of the DevOps stuff, okay, that would mostly be around releases, right? And most of the SRE stuff would be around defining processes
Hmm.
of release or and defining processes of how things get out into our servers.
Hmm.
So yeah, like I guess that kind of covers the questions.
I think there is a very thin line between both of those roles, and there has to be sort of a very tight integration between software developers, DevOps, SREs, and the system engineers that they are
Yes.
executing.
Yeah, so like you might have also seen that most of the job postings that are there, right? It
Hmm.
would be in DevOps slash SRE
Yeah.
because the very high correlation of what these people do, right? Like DevOps for a smaller company would be doing a job of an SRE for a bigger company. Okay, because he or she is the only guy there.
Hmm.
Okay, so that there is definitely a lot of overlap here, and because they are both working on the infra side, one is automating it, one is like getting the software into it. So yeah, like there is a lot of overlap. But if you actually want the differentiation, so this is the high overall picture, like how it would differentiate DevOps and SRE.
Understood. So one question that comes up is basically the loop that you actually showed, right? In terms of that loop, I
Hmm.
think this loop exists from day one the software exists, right? It
Correct,
has been existing since quite some time.
correct.
But what we see as a trend now is that like AWS, cloud computing, SRE, DevOps, all these are becoming big buzzwords, and there is a rise in
Mhm.
people wanting to do this more and more, right? So
Correct.
what explains or what drives this push towards
Mhm.
SRE and DevOps roles, and so many new companies hiring specifically for these roles, whereas that
Mhm.
was not the case earlier, which
Correct.
could have been, yeah.
Yeah, so the thing with the increase in the number of DevOps hiring and the SRE hiring, right? That comes from the fact that cloud as an whole has been evolving, right? So earlier, what used to happen is that companies used to maintain their own servers,
Hmm.
right? And like if you take a company like an IBM, I think till date they maintain their own servers, right? Like they still keep on deploying their code to their own servers, right? But now what is happening is that there are a lot of companies coming up. Like you have clearly seen the startup boom as well, right? So what is happening is that a lot of companies come up and they have to use cloud as a service. So they end up using AWS, they end up using GCP, right? So what they need is that so what they have is a place to deploy. Right now they can deploy everything to AWS cloud, right? But you need someone who can manage that cloud,
Hmm.
right? So that is where DevOps and SRE have started coming up,
Okay.
right? So what has happened is ki as the trend for moving to cloud has like supported the movement of like highlighting the DevOps role and the SRE roles at recent times. And if you see, right, so SRE is a very relatively newer role, right? Like DevOps used to exist, but what happened is like there's a short story behind it that uh, around in 2003, if I'm not wrong. So what happened is that Google hired a new VP of engineering. Okay, and what they wanted to do is just make sure that Google.com was never down, right?
Hmm.
That their entire stack was never down. Okay, so the VP at that time decided that we will take a set of development engineers, right? And we'll make sure like give them this project of easing ops. Okay, and that is where they created the first SRE team.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
and like those are the engineers who have written the first book on SRE. Like that would be the group who has written the first book on SRE, and that is one of the most famous books right now. So site reliability engineering is the book. Like if someone is interested in SRE should read, and that is written by those set of engineers.
Hmm.
So again, like this is a new topic, like a new field that has come up, and there has been a lot of recent innovation in this field. So that's why like the trend line is increasing more and more towards hiring more DevOps and SRE guys.
Hmm. Hmm. Understood. Understood. So it's a great answer, I would say, that clarifies a lot of things.